Hello, lover. Hello, and welcome to another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I'm reading with a vengeance, and I hope you are as well. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. If you're new to my channel, very warm welcome to you. I'm very happy to have you all here. You know, the more I use this background, my Christmas background, the more I feel like this is going to be my background always. I am loving, this is like a little throw blanket, and I just love the look of it. I love the furriness of it. I love my little Christmas gnome back there. I love my little silver Christmas tree right there. This might be what my videos look like year round. It looks and feels so cozy. I'll tell you what isn't cozy though. I'm not sure when I'll be publishing this video, but yesterday, which was my husband's birthday, which was December 11th, it snowed for the first time. Now, this is our 7th year of living in Connecticut. This is the first time where we've gotten snow so late in the year. There was one year that we had snow on Halloween. Can you even imagine? I don't know why we stayed, don't ask. But definitely we have had snow in November on the regular. This is the first year where, yeah, first snow, December 11th. Not gonna complain, but it's cold. What are we doing here? Well, as it says on the thumbnail, we're going to talk about the 23 books that I am going to read in 2023. Now, there's a lot of videos going around, 23 anticipated releases, 23 books I'm excited about, a lot of videos with that similar theme. But this is kind of different for me in the 23 books I'm going to share with you today. So I'm relatively new to Booktube. I didn't start my Booktube channel until February of 2022. Well, of course, I wasn't here for all of these videos that maybe came out last year as well. But what I did on Instagram, I was really big on Instagram before I started my Booktube channel. Last year, I did 22 in 2022, and I've shared this with you before. And I'll pop in the picture again. I shared a picture on Instagram of 22 books I definitely wanted to read in 2022. I did most of them. As of right now, there are 3 books that I did not get to for 2022. Actually, by the end of 2022, I might be able to get one more in there. I'm really hoping to read Life After Life. So this was more of an Instagram challenge that I saw last year that I decided to jump in on. And so I picked 22 books that I definitely wanted to read on top of all the other books that I read. But these were ones that I wanted to definitely get to during the year. And they're also, it just happens to be that they were books that were on my physical shelf. So that's why I was able to take this picture so that you don't strain your eyeballs to see what these books are. I'll just run down the books that I had on this list. I had Ninth House, Norwegian Wood, Station 11, The Lying Game, Life After Life, The One, Beartown, Brit Marie Was Here, The Majesties, Mexican Gothic, The Lost Man, Know My Name, Kindred, The Trials of Morgan Crow, On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, Gilead, I'm Thinking of Ending Things, The Turn of the Key, The Plot, Jar of Hearts, Ace of Spades, and The Final Girl Support Group. So up till this very minute, I read all of them except Life After Life, Norwegian Wood, and The Lying Game. I'm really hoping to get to Life After Life. I may take The Lying Game just off my TBR altogether, just with my history with Ruth Ware. Won't go into that too much. And then Norwegian Wood will continue to be on my TBR. I do want to get to it, hopefully in 2023, but it's not going to be on my must. I still might read it next year. It's just not going to be on this list, but not bad. I mean, 22 in 2022. I'm hoping that 20 will be the final number that I get to by the end of the year. With that said, the 23 that I picked for next year are books that, except for a handful, maybe 3 or 4, they're books that have been on my TBR for over a year. And then the other criteria that they met was that they were books that I was super excited to get to. So as I scrolled through my entire TBR on Goodreads, I handpicked those books that met those 2 criteria and made this list. If you're looking for new releases, you're not going to find them in this video. I'm sorry. But they are books. There are quite a few books I think that haven't been talked a whole lot about. There might be a handful that you have heard people talk about on Booktube, but I think for the most part, there might be some new ones to add to your TBR as well. And they're in no particular order. I'm just going to go through this list. Might touch a little bit about what they're about and why I picked them. So the first one is Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. This has been on my TBR since November of 2016. Ann Patchett is an author that I discovered years and years ago. I read Bel Canto and I read The Magician's Assistant. I enjoyed them tremendously. And then in 2022, I rediscovered her and I read The Dutch House, which I really, really enjoyed. And then I read These Precious Days, which was her collection of essays. Also, very much enjoyed. And the more I read, the more I'm realizing that she has become a new favorite author. So I plan on reading all of her backlist. And the one that's been on my TBR the longest is Commonwealth. This is marketed as literary fiction, which I think is the norm for Ann Patchett. It says, one Sunday afternoon in Southern California, Bert Cousins shows up at Franny Keating's christening party uninvited. Before evening falls, he has kissed Franny's mother, Beverly, thus setting in motion the dissolution of their marriages and the joining of two families. The next book on my list is Mississippi Blood by Greg Iles. This is the sixth and final in the Pen Cage series, and it's the last one that I have to read for this series, obviously. I think I've talked about this series on my channel before. Greg Iles is a fantastic writer. He's one of my husband's favorite authors. I discovered him through my husband. My husband's from Mississippi. Greg Iles is from Mississippi. A lot of his books, if not all of them, take place in Mississippi. Can we stop for a second to admire this cover? Absolutely beautiful. Anyways, obviously it's the sixth in a series, so I won't go too far I won't read the synopsis here, but the series follows Pen Cage, and he is an attorney. He was like a big deal attorney in, I think, Houston, Texas, and he ends up going back home to help his father in the first one. He ends up staying. They're legal thrillers, if you will, that have to do with the culture of Natchez, Mississippi. They're absolute page turners. Can't put them down. The character development is great. It's just a really wonderful series. And I think I've been just putting it off since it's the last in the series on purpose. But I definitely want to finish it this year. So that's why I made this list. The next on this list is Lay Lain by Bryn Greenwood. I have read two books by Bryn Greenwood, one of which is very controversial, and that is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. It's one of my all-time favorite books. One of those Marmite books that you either love or you hate. It's very hard-hitting. It deals with very controversial subject, but because of that book, I read another one, The Reckless Oath We Made. Yes, and I absolutely loved that book as well. So I have been wanting to read even more of her books. Lila Lane follows Jennifer, who has a great job and a go-getter fiance. She's on track for success until she witnesses a fatal hit and run. Mistaking Jennifer for someone else, the dying victim extracts an impossible promise. Olivia is in a rut, burdened with caring for her brain-damaged brother and already feeling like a spinster at 27. She's desperate to escape. In a moment of weakness, she tells a lie that draws an unsuspecting paramedic into her life. As she struggles to expiate the lie, a horrible act of violence will test her resolve to be honest. Where Jennifer's promise and Olivia's lie intersect, their lives begin to unravel. Sounds amazing. If you haven't read Bryn Greenwood, more specifically, if you haven't read All the Ugly and Wonderful Things, what are you doing with your life? Next on my list is from another one of my favorite authors, and that is Leanne Moriarty. There are a handful of books that I have yet to read on her backlist, and I have one in my physical library, and that's why I picked that particular one to be my next read, and that is 9 Perfect Strangers. I won't go too deeply into this one. This one has been talked a lot about on Booktube. They made a series, I believe, on Hulu. But I definitely want to read all of Moriarty's stuff. I love her writing. The Husband's Secret is my favorite of hers. And 9 Perfect Strangers, I believe, has to do with 9 strangers who go to this healing/health resort. And the woman who runs this health resort is strange. And she has strange practices, I believe. And then, of course, strange things start happening to these 9 strangers. I'm here for it, and I'm finally going to get to it in 2023. The next one on my list is The Great Alone by Kristin Hannah. This one has also made the rounds on Booktube, so I won't go too deeply into it. It's just one that I want to read before I get to The Four Winds. I have no rational reason for wanting to read this one first. other than it's been around longer. The Nightingale is one of my all-time favorite books. I absolutely love that book. The Great Alone centers around a family in Alaska in the early 1970s. One of the family members comes home from the Vietnam War and he's dealing with post-traumatic stress. I think there's a coming of age storyline to it, which I love as well. And those are some of the reasons why this one made the list. The next one on this list is a huge Booktube darling, and that is Circe by Madeleine Miller. I've been trying to get to this one. It's been on my TBR since March of 2019 after I read The Song of Achilles, which I absolutely loved. It was one of my, probably the top 5 favorites of 2021 for me. Everybody knows what this one is about. This is a Greek mythology retelling, which I wouldn't say is right up my street, but I loved Achilles so much. And then so many people that I know personally that have read this and loved it, I trust their judgment and I think I'm going to love it. And I've been trying to get to it for so long that that's why I made this list. Okay, finally a book that I'm going to talk about that I don't think has been talked much about on Booktube, and that is Quicksand by Steve Toltz. Why did I pick this book? Well, I read another book by Steve Toltz called A Fraction of the Whole, which was a 5-star book for me. It was absolutely incredible. I have talked about it on this channel because I love that one so much. I wanted to read another one by this author, and I picked The Quicksand because he only has 2 others to choose from. So I picked Quicksand. This is marketed as literary fiction. It takes place in Australia, which the bulk of A Fraction of the Whole took place in Australia as well. Stephen Toltz is an Australian author, and I've mentioned before in previous videos, I am intrigued by everything Australian. Liam is a struggling writer and a failing cop. Aldo, his best friend and muse, is a haplessly criminal entrepreneur with an uncanny knack for disaster. As Aldo's luck worsens, Liam is inspired to base his next book on his best friend's exponential misfortunes and hopeless quest to win back his one great love, his ex-wife, Stella. What begins as an attempt to make sense of Aldo's mishap spirals into a profound story of faith and friendship. So this sounds like it's got very similar themes to A Fraction of the Whole, which gives me great hope. I am really, really looking forward to getting to this one next year. The next book on my list is The Girls Ive Been. I've seen a couple of booktubers talk about this one, but not really a bunch. This is by Tess Sharp. Now, this is marketed as LGBT young adult contemporary thriller, and normally it's not one that would have popped up on my radar, but there's something about this synopsis that really, really intrigues me. I will say Tess Sharp is a new to me author. Nora O'Malley's been a lot of girls. As the daughter of a con artist who targets criminal men, she grew up as her mother's protege. But when mom fell for the mark, instead of conning him, Nora pulled the ultimate con, escape. For 5 years, Nora's been playing it normal, but she needs to dust off the skills she ditched because she has 3 problems. Number 1, her ex walked in on her with her girlfriend. Number 2, the morning after Wes finds them kissing, they all have to meet to deposit the fundraiser money they raised at the bank. Number 3, right after they enter the bank, 2 guys start robbing it. The bank robbers may be trouble, but Nora's something else entirely. They have no idea who they're really holding hostage. Doesn't that sound like so much fun? I have been trying to get to this one, so I'm super excited to add it to this list. The next one I'm super excited for, and I can't believe I didn't get to it in 2022, but this one's called 13 by Steve Kavanaugh. This is the 4th in a series, but from what I understand, you don't have to read them in order, and this one is the only one that's really being talked about with the series. This is a mystery thriller. The serial killer isn't on trial. He's on the jury. They were Hollywood's hottest power couple. They had the world at their feet. Now one of them is dead, and Hollywood star Robert Solomon is charged with the brutal murder of his beautiful wife. This is the celebrity murder trial of the century, and the defense want one man on their team, con artist turned lawyer Eddie Flynn, which is the name of the series. All the evidence points to Robert's guilt, but as the trial begins, a series of sinister incidents in the courtroom start to raise doubts in Eddie's mind. What if there's more than one actor in the courtroom? What if the killer isn't on trial? What if the killer is on the jury? I have heard, and I can't remember from who, but I have heard this is an absolute can't put down page-turning thriller, and I am here for it. Booktube darling alert, next one on my list is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Slowly making my way through her backlist. I have Carrie Soto is back in my physical TBR, and of course, I mean, people have told me that I can read that without reading Malibu Rising because Carrie Soto is just super, super small character in Malibu Rising, but she's introduced in Malibu Rising. And chronologically, I feel it makes more sense to read Malibu Rising before I get to Carrie Soto. I've read Evelyn Hugo, I've read Daisy Jones. I absolutely love those two other books. And it's not a series, but they're all kind of connected and they all kind of go in chronological order. Nobody said a bad word about Malibu Rising, so I definitely want to get to this because I want to read Carrie Soto, which is in my physical library, which, as you know, I'm trying to whittle down. The next one on this list is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. How did I do with that? Translated by Jeffrey Trousselot? Not sure. A lot of people have talked about this on Booktube. It just sounds like a cozy, interesting story. This is fiction, fantasy, magical realism. I actually, even though I haven't had a whole lot of luck with fantasy, I really, really enjoy magical realism. This one centers around a coffee shop where if you sit in a specific seat, I think you can travel back in time, but I think there's some caveats where even if you can travel back in time, but you can't leave the cafe and you have to return to the present time before your coffee gets cold, which of course I think centers around 4 different people and their experiences with this cafe. The next one is one that I don't think has been talked a lot about on Booktube, and that is Oh Beautiful by Jung Yoon. Jung Yoon is a South Korean author, and she wrote a book called Shelter, which I absolutely adored. I wanted to read another one by this author. This is literary fiction. This follows Eleanor Hansen, a 40-something former model who's struggling to reinvent herself as a freelance writer when she receives an unexpected assignment. Her mentor from grad school offers her a chance to write for a prestigious magazine about the Bakken oil boom in North Dakota. Eleanor grew up near the Bakken, raised by an overbearing father and a distant Korean mother who met and married when he was stationed overseas. After decades away from home, Eleanor returns to a landscape she hardly recognizes, overrun by tens of thousands of newcomers, surrounded by roughnecks seeking their fortunes in oil and longtime residents worried about their changing community. Eleanor experiences a profound sense of alienation and grief. She rages at the unrelenting male gaze, the locals who still see her as a foreigner, and the memories of her family's estrangement after her mother decided to escape her unhappy marriage, leaving Eleanor and her sister behind. The longer she pursues this potentially career-altering assignment, the more her past intertwines with the stories she's trying to tell, revealing disturbing new realities that will forever change her and the way she looks at the world. I am loving this. Return to small town, some Korean culture, and a controversial event that's happening that divides a town. I am really, really looking forward to this. She's only got Shelter and Oh Beautiful, so I'll be able to say I've read your entire backlist if, for some reason, I meet this wonderful author. The next on my list is The Harpy by Megan Hunter. I have been trying to get this book. I'll probably have to order it on Amazon. I look for it all the time at the library. It's never there. I try to get it on audio. It's never there. It's very lowly rated on Goodreads, but there's just something about the premise that really, really intrigues me. This is marketed as contemporary fiction with magical realism. It does say readers also enjoyed Our Wives Under the Sea, which is a huge Booktube darling, which is on my TBR. So from what I understand, The Harpy has to do with a married couple, Lucy and Jake, and Lucy finds out that Jake has cheated on her. After it comes out, though, Lucy and Jake decide to stay together, but under a special arrangement. And here's where it gets interesting. The arrangement is to settle the score in Lucy's mind to save their marriage. And that score settling involves Lucy being able to hurt Jake 3 times. It doesn't say if it's like physical hurt, emotional hurt. I don't know. It's a mystery, and I'm going to find out about it in 2023. Also, this cover. Next on my list is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Talked a lot about on Booktube. I have wanted to read this since it came out because I absolutely loved The Martian. The Martian, I wouldn't say it was my first sci-fi, but it was the first time that I read a sci-fi that I thought, oh my gosh, I'm loving this genre and I'm going to read a lot more sci-fi. I won't go too deep into the synopsis. A lot of people have talked about this one. Follows Ryland Grace, who is on a space mission. He wakes up, doesn't remember where he is or why he's there. His crew members are dead, and the story goes from there. And I'm super excited about it. I haven't heard a bad word said. And if it's anything at all like the pacing and plot of The Martian, then I'm pretty sure I'm going to love it. Ooh, this next one, I have not seen anybody talk about it on Booktube, and that is December Park by Ronald Malfi. I have not read Malfi, but this book came up because it was a book that Goodreads recommended because I loved Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. Absolutely one of my favorite books. Coming of age, horror, magical realism. It was perfect. In the fall of 1993, the quiet suburb of Harding Farms is shocked when children begin to vanish, and one is found dead near December Park, a great sweeping expanse that is sunken below the streets and surrounded on three sides by vast woodlands, a place children believe is haunted. Newspapers call the abductor the Piper because he has come to lead children away, while kids whisper darker names for him in the school halls. Angelo Mazzoni and his friends discover a link to the dead girl and take up the search for the killer, vowing to stop the Piper's reign of terror. Their teenage pledge becomes a journey of self-discovery and an odyssey into the darkness of their own hometown. OMG. Small town, murder mystery, coming of age, teenagers trying to solve the mystery, all the boxes being ticked. So yeah, it's marketed as horror, young adult, coming of age mystery thriller. I am here for it. So December Park, I'm coming for you in 2023. So the next book on this list is Free Food for Millionaires by Min Jin Lee, who, as you know, is the author of Pachinko. Lots talked about Pachinko last year. I read Pachinko years ago, absolutely loved it. I believe a 5-star read for me. And I was super happy to see it making the rounds on Booktube in 2022. It's such a good book, and it probably reemerged this year because they made a miniseries out of it, which we watched, and it was okay. I don't think it lived up to the book. Just stunning, stunning novel. And because I loved it and because it was a 5-star read for me, I want to read another one of her books. The daughter of Korean immigrants, Casey Han has refined diction, a closeted passion for reading the Bible, a popular white boyfriend, and a magna cum laude degree in economics from Princeton, but no job and an addiction to the things she cannot afford in the glittering world of Manhattan. In this critically acclaimed debut, her debut novel, Min Jin Lee tells not only Casey's story, but also those of her sheltered mother, scarred father, and friends, both Korean and Caucasian, exposing the astonishing layers of a community clinging to its old ways and a city packed with struggling haves and have-nots. I haven't heard anybody really talking about it on Booktube, so I am super excited to get to it in 2023. Next on my list will probably surprise a lot of my viewers. It is a fantasy book, but it's fantasy / sci-fi, so I have higher hopes for it. If you've watched my videos before, you know I've not had really good luck with fantasy, but I keep trying. This one I heard about a booktuber talk about. I can't remember who it was, but the way she or he described it sounded so intriguing and so much fun, and that is, drumroll, Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. It's only been around since 2018, but listen to this. Now, I would describe it to you myself, but I'm not as familiar with the sci-fi fantasy vernacular to be able to explain it to you. I have it in my head what it's about, but I'll just read you real quick.
The Tower of Babel is the greatest marvel in the world. Immense as a mountain, the ancient tower holds unnumbered kingdoms, warring and peaceful.
Well, no, that's just too complicated. So this Tower of Babel is this huge tower with many, 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 many floors, and on each floor, there's like a different world, I believe. This particular story follows a couple, a newlywed couple, Thomas and Maria. They go there on their honeymoon, but they get separated. The story follows Thomas as he goes to each of these floors, which are these different worlds entirely, looking for his wife. Looks like Sunland Ascends is a first in a series, so I'm really hoping I like it. And I don't know, it just sounds amazing. Now, if I can follow the world building in this, I really, really have high hopes for this fantasy series. Cross your fingers for me. This next one I'm super excited to get to because it's the second in a series that I started in 2021. And I feel like the first one was on my list of favorites for 2021. The first one was called My Life as a White Trash Zombie, and it was hilarious. I listened to it. The narrator was perfection, and I just enjoyed the crap out of it. So the second one made it to my list of must-reads for 2023, and that is Even White Trash Zombies Get the Blues. Look at this cover. Oh my God. And that's the main character. Her name is Angel. Oh, and this series is by Diana Rowland. I'll just tell you what the first one is about, and it follows, like I said, it follows Angel. She's a pretty much a loser, nobody. She lives in the bayou of Louisiana. She is living with her alcoholic deadbeat dad. She's got a drug addiction and she's on probation. Her life is just on this downward spiral. But then one day she wakes up in the ER and she has been in a terrible car accident, but she is completely uninjured. So she's totally weirded out, and to add to it, she receives a note, an anonymous note, saying there's a job for her at the local morgue and it would behoove her not to refuse it. In just a quick little blurb, before she knows it, she's dealing with a huge crush on a certain hunky deputy and a brand new addiction, an overpowering craving for brains. Plus, her morgue is filling up with the victims of a serial killer who decapitates his prey just when she's hungriest. So she's trying to battle her new life as a zombie, and she's solving crime. It is so much fun. And if I haven't mentioned it, are you looking at this cover? It absolutely tickles me. And we'll stay on that second in the series train. And the next one on my list is In Bloom by C.J. Skews. This is the second in the Sweet Pea trilogy. And Sweet Pea, I think, got a lot of talk on Booktube in 2021. And that's when I read Sweet Pea. Had a really good time with it. Another beautiful cover. Hello. This series follows Rhiannon, and she's a serial killer. So I'll just read you the synopsis of Sweet Pea because I don't want to give anything away. The last person who called me Sweet Pea ended up dead. I haven't killed anyone for 3 years, and I thought that when it happened again, I'd feel bad, like an alcoholic taking a sip of whiskey. But no, nothing. I had a blissful night's sleep. Rhiannon is your average girl next door, settled with her boyfriend and little dog, but she's got a killer secret. It's a fun ride, and In Bloom just carries on where Sweet Pea left off. These last four I have added to my TBR just this past year in 2022, but they're ones that I'm absolutely excited about, really, really excited about. Thought I would get to them in 2022 and it just didn't happen. So they are absolutely must-reads for 2023. The first of which is 3 Hours by Rosamund Lipton. I have been trying to get to this one. I don't know why I haven't yet. She's new to me author. This one takes place around a school shooting. It's supposed to be fast-paced, which of course everybody likes that. I might read this one earlier in the year while it's still winter because it has a wintry atmosphere. I'm really, really looking forward to this one. Yeah, I was happy to add this one to the list. The next book made it onto this list, has only been on my TBR since May of 2022, but it went onto my TBR immediately after reading a 5-star book from 2022. The 5-star book that I'm talking about is The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. As soon as I read that one, fell in love with it, I added the next one from that author, and it has made it onto this list, and that is 10 minutes, 38 seconds in this strange world. The Island of Missing Trees, I absolutely love that book. It made it to my list of all-time favorites. I love her writing. I love the story that she told in that one in particular. It's contemporary literary fiction. For Layla, each minute after her death brings a sensuous memory, the taste of spiced goat stew sacrificed by her father to celebrate the long-awaited birth of a son, the sight of bubbling vats of lemon and sugar which the women use to wax their legs while the men attend mosque, the scent of cardamom coffee that Layla shares with a handsome student in the brothel where she works. Each memory, too, recalls the friends she made at each key moment in her life, friends who are now desperately trying to find her. That synopsis doesn't do a whole lot for me, probably didn't do a whole lot for you either, but just knowing how Elif Shafak writes, just knowing how much I love The Island of Missing Trees, I want to read something else by this author, and that's why this book made it to this list. This next book is by an author that I fell in love with in 2022. I read 2 of his books last year. One was a 5-star, the other one was a 4-star, if not a 4.5-star. I loved them both. The author I'm talking about is S.A. Cosby. The books that I read last year that I absolutely loved, I'm talking about are Blacktop Wasteland and, oh my goodness, Razorblade Tears. I hear he has a new one coming out in 2023, but until that happens, I'm hoping to get to this one before June. And that is his debut novel, which is My Darkest Prayer. I have been looking for this one at the library, can't seem to find it. I'll probably have to buy it on Amazon. If you haven't read Razorblade Tears, you're missing out. Please read it immediately. It's so good. My Darkest Prayer, whether it's working at his cousin's funeral home or tossing around the local riff-raff at his favorite bar, Nathan Waymaker is a man who knows how to handle the bodies. A former Marine and sheriff deputy, Nathan has built a reputation in his small, southern town as a man who can help when all other avenues have been exhausted. When a local minister with grandiose ambitions is found dead, Nathan is approached by his parishioners who feel the local police are dragging their feet with the investigation. Let me tell you something. S.A. Cosby not only puts together a plot that keeps the pages turning like you wouldn't believe, his character development, the characters that he comes up with, Buddy Lee and Ike in Razorblade Tears, I really hope they make a movie. It's one of those stories where the characters you want to see in real life. S.A. Cosby puts together characters that are just so engaging that you connect with immediately, and then you go on this adventure. S.A. Cosby has become a favorite author, and that's why My Darkest Prayer made it to this list. And finally, the last book that made it onto my list of must-reads in 2023 is Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukagawa. This is translated from the Japanese by Allison Watts. I saw a booktuber talk about this book. My apologies because I can't remember which booktuber it was. If you're watching right now, please comment down below if you have read this book and loved it and reviewed it in such a way that would lead another booktuber to want to read it. This one just spoke to me for one reason or another. And again, hello with this cover. It's gorgeous. Sentaro has failed. He has a criminal record, drinks too much, and his dream of becoming a writer is just a distant memory. With only the blossoming of the cherry trees to mark the passing of time, he spends his days in a tiny confectionery shop selling dorayaki, a type of pancake filled with sweet bean taste. But everything is about to change. Into his life comes Toku, an elderly woman with disfigured hands and a troubled past. Toku makes the best sweet bean paste Sentaro has ever tasted. She begins to teach him her craft, but as their friendship flourishes, social pressures become impossible to escape, and Toku's dark secret is revealed with devastating consequences. Super excited for this one. So that is it. Those are my must-reads for 2023, in addition to probably 100 other books that I will read in 2023. These are the 23 that I absolutely plan on getting to. Are any of these books on your list? Have you already read any of these books? I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear your recommendations if any of these books need to be bumped up to the top. Do I need to read them sooner rather than later? I want to know. Please tell me your thoughts, or just say hi down in the doodly-doo. If you're still watching at this point, please consider giving that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.